You wanted the best. You've got the best podcast. The hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
Hi, folks. It's Voss here from thechrisvossshow.com. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. There, ladies sings it. That makes it officially official, as I like to say. I don't know who says it's officially official, but it just sounded good at the time it came out of my mouth. We're going to have an amazing author on the show today. We're going to be talking about his insight into on how Democrats can win back men. We'll get to that book title in a second. But we'll be talking a little bit of politics. And definitely it's on topic because President Biden recently didn't have a best night on the stage for the debate, and we'll get into some of that details as well. So it's politics day here on the Chris Voss Show. But in the meantime, refer to the show to your family, friends, and relatives. Guilt and shame them, twist their arm a little bit. You know, not physically, because that's assault. People don't do that. Don't touch each other. Don't make me come back there and pull over the car. But give them a little twisting and say, hey, you should subscribe to the Chris Voss Show because you need to be smarter and you're kind of dumb. No, don't say that. Don't say that either. These are all things not to say. That's what we're doing on the show. It's opposite day. So anyway, go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, Chris Voss one at TikTokity, and buymeacoffee.com/Chris Voss. Today we have Mark W. Sutton on the show with us today. We're going to be talking about his new book that came out June 26, 2024. It's called How Democrats Can Win Back Men. Why understanding male voters and their issues is vital for Democratic victory. And we need to have one. It's kind of coming down to fascism, authoritarianism, or democracy, if you study fascism. We've had some great fascism, authoritarian authors on the show. Strongman, I think it was, I forget her name, but it'll come to me. So Mark W. Sutton is an MBA. He's been a registered Democrat for 35 years and has been passionate about supporting male well-being for 30. He has produced radio show content for NPR, Air America Radio, and the Mother Jones Radio Show, and hosted the podcast Liberal Arts with Mark Sutton. He's a gender expert. I thought I was a gender expert, but
there could be more than one.
I haven't seen them all. There you go. I've only seen the two genders, so I haven't experimented outside of that. Although there is the internet. He's appeared on MSNBC, CBS Radio, and served as guest host for the TV show Men's Net. That sounds like a jockstrap. I'm sorry. I just had to do that joke. Sounds like a thong. Men's Net, coming to you at Chippendales, and Thunder Down Under, coming in later in this thing. I'm not going to Google Men's Net. Mark is also passionate about economic justice, having worked in the field of community development, financial institutions, supporting low-income communities, and individually focused on social outcome data and policy. He's consulted for many male-supportive nonprofit organizations. Welcome to the show, Mark. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
There you go. When I was reading that last line that said male supportive, and then I did that Men's Net joke.
Yeah.
Those two were, I was trying to figure out how to parse that joke into the two of them. Anyway, give us your .coms. Where can people find you on the interwebs?
Sure. The best place to find me is mark-sutton.com. That's my website, and it has a link to Amazon where the book is available, and also to my blog about men in the 2024 election on Substack.
There you go. So how Democrats can win back men. Tell us a 30,000 overview of this book, please.
Sure. So I have been a registered Democrat, as you mentioned, for 35 years. I've been very frustrated that the party does not pay any attention to male gender issues. And so what I did was, first of all, I looked at the data of voting. And what you can see, there's this huge bifurcation of voting. So basically, the Republicans is trending very male. Mm-hmm. And the Democratic Party is trending very female. And this has been happening for the last 50 years. Like, why is this happening? And of course, I'm a Democrat, so I want to get that male trending back the other way. So my thought was, how can we do this?
So it's been going on for 50 years then?
Yeah. Wow. Basically, 1972, people were kind of in lockstep for Nixon. Then, of course, Watergate happened. People weren't happy with that. So everyone kind of was in lockstep for Jimmy Carter. And it was in 1980 when Ronald Reagan ran. That's when that split started, and it's been that way ever since and growing.
Wow. That's amazing, because I thought the split happened after Obama with Trump, but that's great data.
Yeah.
And is it partially because of, well, you tell me why. You're the researcher. Why is that?
Okay. A big part of it is I think the Democratic Party has just thought that they want to support women's issues, which is great. And I want to make sure that, you and everyone listening too knows I support women and girls. That's one of the reasons I like the Democratic Party, because they do support women and girls very well. But, the Democrats have not done the same with men and boys. And in fact, every time a Democratic president is in power, they lose the male vote from the previous election. Like they get in, they don't do anything specifically for men and boys. And then the next election comes around and the men think, he's not really doing much for me. I guess I'll vote back the other way this time.
Wow. Yeah. And that's pretty much what elected Trump in. I mean, the way that we ordained Hillary Clinton, and I voted for Hillary Clinton because the alternative was, no matter, I've followed Trump since 1986 and known what a shitbag he is. I would have voted, if he would have been a Democrat, I would have voted Republican for, I don't know, whoever was on the Republican side. I'll vote for it. I'll always vote for against Trump. I know what a scam artist that man is. Is it because, I know the Democratic Party has embraced women and I believe, feminism. I know that the big, what was it? It was the big turnover with the Johnson administration, where the Johnson administration, of course, there was the ruling of Roe versus Wade, and then Johnson kind of flipped the whole map of, what the Democrats are for and what the Republicans for by supporting black people, by supporting welfare, and then they took the unions, which the Republicans used to have, and so then, Nixon had to go looking for what became the Great Southern Strategy. One of his advisors, the father of Betsy DeVos, helped start this new thing where they found that abortion was a way to get the vote out for Republicans. For a lot of years, it's kind of become Democrats are for abortion and Republicans are against. Has that been a big sort of ideologue sort of signaling that's driven men away?
Yeah, and that's I don't know if that is specifically driven men away, but that's definitely a major issue with the two parties. You're absolutely right. And, there's a few of these issues when you ask what is the divergence happening, there are other factors at play as well. Abortion, being one of them. But I think it's just important to see the pattern and notice how consistent it is. And also the Democrats, I think they should understand that every single time in that time period when they have lost men by more than 8%, they have lost the election.
Wow.
I call that the magic number of -8%. And this is all exit poll data. It's not the data I'm using. It's got a little bit of a margin of error, but it's pretty good data. Every single time since 1972, if they've been above 8 at -8 or above, they've done better. If they're below -8, they've lost. They've lost the election. And Joe Biden just barely won the last election. And guess what his number was with men?
What?
-8. He was right at that lower limit. So my strategy as a Democrat should be say, okay, we almost lost the last election. We were at -8 with men. Let's try to get up to -4 with men. Let's just try to appeal to men better. Let's message to men. Let's throw them a bone. Let's give some sort of men's health, bill or something. Just do something for men. And I've been so frustrated because as I've followed this election for the last, couple years and just seeing the Democrats refuse to meaningfully acknowledge men and boys and their issues.
Definitely. And there's a lot of issues that men and boys have. We're seeing that come true. We had recently on the show, I just had it on one of these tabs here, and there it is. We just recently on the show in the 2022, Boys Adrift, the 5 factors driving economic or growing epidemic of unmotivated boys and underachieving young men by Leonard Sachs.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing about that book, and there's a couple books like his, The War on Boys, and a few others that were written by these psychologists 20, 25, 30 years ago. And so when we had him on the show, he was doing an updated copy of the original book. And everything that they predicted about men being driven out of teaching, activist, emotionalist, very feminist-driven teachers being brought into education, boys being treated like broken girls, boys being, punished for being active and busy like they are. Why can't you be more like the girls? To today's age, where after Me Too, there's school counselors telling boys not to date and just there's something that rhymes with date and just master. Because the problem they have is they're telling the boys is if you get a false accusation or a real accusation of some sort of sexual assault, your life is over at this point with Me Too. And they're like, you don't want to, and not everyone's stable in high school. I dated in high school. I don't think anybody was.
And that's a great example. That story you just told is that gets to kind of the heart of why I'm involved with these issues at all. Because people say, why do you care so much about this? What's the big deal? Why are you worried about like men's issues or men and women's issues? And because I can feel this divide happening, and I've been feeling it for the last 30 years, there's this cultural divide happening. It's been called the gender divide. More recently, that's become a little more famous. And, the issue is it's being just reflected in the presidential vote. When you see that presidential vote with that bifurcation, that is a representation of the cultural gender divide. And I don't like that. I want to live in a country where men and women feel like we're all on the same team. And it's not us against you or you against us. And that's why it's so challenging working with the Democrats, because they don't want to embrace the male message. They only want to embrace the female message.
Yeah. And and I think you're right. It's really become, I can see why families are important to people. I mean, boys are struggling right now because they can't fulfill their biological paradigm. They're imperative to create families and breed. I mean, we're all kind of breeding for the universe. We're propagating the species. That's kind of our core mission as human beings. I don't know. I hate to break it to anybody, but you live to breed. And everything you do is to breed. So all the cars you buy and all the stuff you do to impress the other person. The boy crisis, Warren Farrell wrote a plug for your book. There was Christina Hoff Sommers, The War Against Boys, How Misguided Policies Are Harming Our Young Men. Recently there was Of Boys and Men, The Modern Male is Struggling. He kind of nailed it, but then he danced around it so he didn't piss off a certain group of people. But, I've been in the dating market for 35 years. I just never got tired of being happy and settled down and got married. Plus, I can't afford the divorces yet. I got to save up a few more millions. And what I'm seeing now, and I run giant dating groups and meetups. So I host these events every week where we have hundreds of people come out. They're singles to meet up in real person because dating apps aren't working. And it's a real problem for both men and women. So there's this huge hookup culture going on. No one's creating families. Only about 95% of males are pretty much ignored by women on dating apps. That's actual data you can look up. They're chasing all the top chads and the top high-value men. I know because they're in my DMs as a high-value man. And it's really wild. And it's I'm seeing in my groups that women in their 50s are coming to me going, where are all the good men? And I'm like, you monkey branch too far. Most of the men are dying in double digits in their 50s. The good men have already been grabbed up, except for me. And there's some debate on that from the women's side. But I'll give it to them. But, I have money. That's all that matters. But, it's interesting. And then the other problem women complain to me about is, where are all the masculine men? And I'm like, you guys killed them. Remember all that things you said where, men aren't important, down with men, women up, men down. We don't need no man. We got our independence. You killed the masculine men. You raised them in single motherhoods to where they didn't have fathers around. You beat the masculinity out of them through feminism, because emotionalism hasn't run as the big thing that people don't get. It's not about equality. It's about scarcity. And so it means women must rise, or men must sink so that women can rise.
Yeah, and I don't like that duality. I know exactly what you're saying, and this is, I say this repeatedly in the book, that politics is not a zero-sum game. We can help women and girls at the same time we help men and boys. And another reason why, for instance, I think the Republican Party is having better success with men, because they're addressing men's issues. They actually talk about masculinity. In the last year or so, Josh Hawley, he's a senator from Missouri. I might not agree with his politics, but he did write a book about men and about masculinity
when he wasn't running from the mobs he created.
Yeah.
Real masculine move there, buddy.
Yeah. And then there's Marco Rubio, who is, being considered potentially as a VP candidate, but he did
He's straight? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, but he wrote a 40-page, his office came out with a 40-page report on men and jobs and the state of men. It's okay. So guess what? The party that actually talks to men, about what's going on with them, gets more of their votes. Who knew? I mean, why is that so hard to figure out?
The majority of people you saw on January 6th were, what gender? Men. If men can't achieve their biological paradigms to create families and we don't get unconditional love, of course, but to get the respect in what we deem as love, in respect, and creating and providing, we really that's built into our genetics, and we really get off on it. And we know we're disposable in society. We always have to go to war. They just did a thing that just recently where they passed a bill where they're just going to force all men to be registered to vote, but they excluded women. And I'm like, wait, what about that equality thing? Thought we were doing the equality thing.
This is interesting because it's one of those issues that is a little more on the, it's one on the spectrum of issues not so clear cut. And I would say that, one thing about automatically registering men, it gets rid of the penalties for failing to register, at least. Because, before that, if you just didn't know, or you missed the note card in the mail, or nobody ever told you had to answer it, you wouldn't be eligible for federal grants like Pell Grants or student loans. You couldn't work for the government. And theoretically, you could be jailed. That didn't really happen, but theoretically, you could face jail. But if we're in a society of equality, shouldn't men and women both have to register for selective service? If it's not, then it's a different conversation. Okay, then men and women are different. We have different rules for each. That opens a whole Pandora's box. And the other thing about the draft that people should keep in mind too is that just because someone has to register for elective service doesn't mean you're in the military. Then if there is a draft and you do get selected, it doesn't mean you're going to go into a combat role. You might be, packing boxes to put in planes to send overseas. Just because you're in the military doesn't mean you're in a combat role. And we have 20% of the military is women. And, thank you, all members of the military, for the great work that you do. But if there is equality, then why shouldn't it? And actually, this is another thing that's interesting about this is that Democrats and Republicans, it's not a party issue. There are Democrats who are for this, there are Democrats who are against it, and Republicans for it, and Republicans against it. So it's one of those few issues that does not fall along party lines.
Yeah, and it's really interesting. The rise of simps the rise of simps has been an issue. Men who aren't masculine and very servile, and they don't understand dating game. But the rise of incels, and I never knew what an incel was until that Santa Barbara killer showed up way back there. And I'm like, there's an incel guy who hates women, and so he killed a bunch of people? I don't want to die by a guy who's a virgin. That seems like the worst person to kill me. And so I started, researching what this incel thing was. And then I started seeing it happening with young men in my own family that were being raised. And I'm like, hey, you're 16, time to get there's driver's license so you can, chase girls at the prom and stuff when you're 17 or 18. I don't know how it works. And it's been a long time. And they're like, nah, not interested in girls. I'm like, what? I told a girl that I loved her in high school, and she told me no, and now I hate women forever. And I'm like, dude, if you gave up after one girl told you no, you got a long life ahead of you, man.
Yeah, learning about rejection, that's definitely a part of the male experience. Yeah, it's a big part of it.
There are going to be a few women that are going to say no to you. That's kind of that's kind of the process, but it makes you a better man. And, and it kind of prepares you for the world, too, because, jobs are going to tell you no. The world hates you as a man for the most part. It's like, make some of yourself and we'll see what you are. Yeah. But, and so a lot of these books that they wrote back then 20 or 30 years ago have all come true. Yeah. You read them and they're like fortune tellers. And, recently, I'm all for equality, but it has to be real equality. It can't be this, what you've alluded to, this parsed out equality over here for air conditioning jobs. And, I'm still waiting to see a female, laying brick or being in the construction trade or, picking up the garbage on the garbage things. It seems like the air conditioning jobs are off the map for equality.
Yeah,
especially when you look at the numbers.
Yeah, and I think it's just reasonable and common sense to understand that not every job is going to be 50-50. Yeah. It does not make sense to say you have to look at every job and say 50-50. Doesn't mean maybe there's some jobs we can work toward getting more representation of any demographic group. I know a lot of people have been advocating for more male elementary school teachers because, like you said, there used to be a lot more. Another field, psychology. The male psychologists are going extinct. Yeah. There's very few of them. So I do think, it's a delicate balance that we have to do, I think, when we say, we do want some want to make sure that everyone who wants to get into this field can get into the field and can do well. But at the same time, we don't want to force people into jobs just to meet some arbitrary number and get people into a career where they're not comfortable, they're not happy, they don't do a good job, and then everyone else has to, help them out or something.
Emotionalism doesn't support a meritocracy. It supports socialism. And the way that nature works is it's about, they love equality, but it's only equality when it serves the people who want it the most. And the people who want like a meritocracy, which builds everything we own, that's what the world builds on. If you study empires, once they go to emotionalism, they're dead. Once they abandon logic, reason, meritocracy, earning your way through the thing. And I think, I don't know, recently SCOTUS did a ruling that kind of took away some of that, give people a free ride sort of thing that maybe don't deserve it and don't have the merit base for it. I think with the recent college thing, didn't they?
With the college thing is interesting because I would say this: if you've got people who, there's people like Bernie Sanders who've been talking about this for a long time. College is too expensive. Why do we have people going into debt for their whole life to go to college? And maybe shouldn't be that way. But I was surprised that the answer to that was, let's have the government bail the students out. If the schools got all the money, why don't the schools bail? Why don't the schools say, you know what, you borrowed $100,000 10 years ago, you couldn't even get a job good enough to pay it back. We'll pay it back for you. Why? I don't understand why the taxpayer have to pay it back. I do understand that I think some of these universities and stuff have really high tuition, and it's like people go so far into debt for that. So yeah, I don't know if that's an exact answer to your question, but
yeah, I think, we need a meritocracy. You should only get a job if you earn it and if you qualify. This whole thing where you're looking at people and going, we have to fill, some sort of quota is BS. One of the things that I recently had a big problem with was the approval of the massive attorneys firms that are filthy rich from running sexual harassment lawsuits. You're familiar with that?
Yeah, and Title IX.
Yeah.
Are you talking about in university setting?
No, it's across
anywhere?
The board for companies.
Okay.
And so basically, a lot of these activist, emotionalist attorneys that are suing every company in the world for any instance of the quotas being off or sexual harassment, they make all their money doing this. And so they passed a law that basically, sorry, we've got a spam caller coming in evidently on the show. Yeah, fucking spam. All right.
I hate that.
Let me just make a note here for real quick because this part's going to get edited. Normally we have everything off, but spam's a caller 30 minutes in. All right. Anyway, what they did is it used to be that companies could force those into arbitration. They could have an arbitration clause that could say, no, if you have sexual harassment, you got to take it in arbitration. There's not as much money in that, and there's not as much settlements and of course payouts for it. So what they did is they lobbied the Biden administration and everybody else to make it so that they could be the only segment of lawsuits or attorneys or topical whatever that can get around arbitration. And it really made me angry as a man because I'm like, if we're going to ban companies from arbitrating stuff like sexual harassment, we should ban them from doing anything. Like, why the fuck does that get special treatment?
Why does the one thing get special treatment? Yeah, there was a great skit on Saturday Night Live a long time ago about sexual harassment that I think pointed out one of the challenges with it. So they had Horatio Sands goes up to Tina Fey, and he's like, "Hey Tina, you want to go on a date with me?" And she's like, "That's not appropriate. I'm going to call HR." She picks up the phone, and then the Patriots quarterback, Tom Brady, he walks up only wearing his tighty waist. "Hey Tina, you want to go out?" I'd love to. And that's not sexual harassment. They were kind of making a really good political point was, what is the definition of harassment or not is completely the person who feels it. So somebody could say a minorly off-color joke and say, "Oh, I felt sexual harassment." It's a little challenging part of the law. I mean, I think it's like a lot of laws. It started out with a very good reason, and there's absolutely certain cases where it's 100% the right thing. But there's other times where it can get, and I think when there's motivation, when there's a monetary motivation for a law firm or somebody to try to eke out any tiny little minor grievance and turn it into a big thing, that's when we start to get problems.
Yeah, or you don't want to work and you just want to pay out. I've done the sexual harassment complaint, overseeing, firing people, writing them up for all my companies. I handled it personally because talking to attorneys, they're like, you can only allow 2 warnings, and then you got to kick them. You can't do 3 because then it looks like you're being supportive. You really have to have a zero tolerance policy on this stuff. And we had trainings and everything else, but one of the challenges of my companies that just is consistent and always has been is that it's always the person, there's plenty of the sexual harassment going on with the same woman. It's just the guys that she doesn't like that are ugly that I have to fire. And it's been interesting. We found that if we remove that person, that woman from the organization, we don't have any problems. So we have to actually watch for very flirtatious, problematic people that give off a lot of signals, sexual signals, and just keep them out of the organization. At one point, I told my executive secretary, I don't want, just hire ugly people from here on out. I don't want any more beautiful people working here. Like, I'm dead fucking serious. And you know what happened? Especially after we got rid of certain people that would complain about stuff all the time and create a lot of complaints. They were going around hugging people. And, the problem is the ugly guy would see the cute girl is hugging, Chad, Tom Brady. And it was very true. It's been consistent since the 90s for me in seeing it. This is a pattern. And, I'm just like, okay, it's interesting when we remove certain people from the group that are overly sexualized and overly flirtatious. Guess what happens to all my sexual harassment claims? They drop to 0. It's kind of weird. We found there's a connection there. And so there really is power behind that. I mean, it's a joke, but it's not. And I was really upset with the Biden administration, even though I voted for him, that they approved that, because I'm like, I want equality. The arbitration's kind of bullshit across the board that companies pull that shit. And let's just eliminate arbitration overall. Like, why does the sexual harassment emotionalism team get what they want?
Interesting. There's been similar criticism of the Biden administration for the Title IX policy. It's kind of related. So I wasn't familiar with that law, so thanks for sharing that with me. But Title IX on campuses has been a similar thing where they have these tribunals, and there have been a number of lawsuits by people who feel like they were unfairly adjudicated by the school and kicked out of school without proper resource. And, this is one of those areas, like I said, I'm a Democrat, but, when the Republicans came into office, they said, hey, we want to make sure everyone is treated fairly in these tribunals. If there's an accusation, take it seriously, but the person's innocence also has to be taken seriously. We have the presumption of innocence in this country. That sounds very straightforward, American. It's our tradition, is what our country was founded on, due process. I mean, that's one of the most important principles of our country. So I don't understand why Democrats are against due process when it happens on a university campus.
Yeah, that's part of the wokeism that's taken over, the woke extremism, emotionalism has taken over campuses. I mean, I'm not a right-wing dude. I'm not like trying to stop abortion or, do anything that's Republican, but when I see people stomping their feet like bratty children, holding their breath and plugging their ears, nose, and closing their eyes, hear no evil, and you're like, and they're just shouting everyone down. I'm like, this isn't how you run a civil society. This isn't what our founders wanted. They wanted debate. They debated the Constitution for a long time. It was an argument, and you've studied the Federalist Papers. They were arguing in the newspapers about it, debating in the newspapers about it. Yeah, the law was signed on March 3rd, 2022. It was called the Law Limiting Arbitration Agreements for Sexual Harassment and Harassment Claims. I believe it was HR 445 something. But I was kind of like, because I think arbitration is BS across the board. So I'm like, let's do equality. Let's just ban all arbitration, because it's kind of a joke. It's how companies kind of
limit their liability by saying you can't sue us, but we'll go to court and you maybe get a small settlement out of it.
And they do that for consumers too, in protection against class action lawsuits. I guess if they kill some people with a bad product or some sort of other class action thing, they can screw over consumers. They screw over everybody with it. I'm totally against it. But it really made me angry as a male voter, because I'm just like, hey, this is stupid.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I was going to say, you mentioned too, just that lack of having different ideas. It's another thing about the Biden administration. Again, they've done a lot of things that I really like. So I'm not here to trash him. I'm like you, I'm a moderate Democrat, but he has a White House a gender policy council, which is actually a women and girls council, which basically he remade that council from what Barack Obama had. And this council's only mission is to focus on women and girls. They don't focus on men and boys at all, even though it's called the Gender Policy Council. And he needs people like, he needs people with a different point of view who have more of a male focus to balance out that council so that he can make the decisions in front of the country from a balanced perspective. Instead, he's only getting information about women and girls and not about men and boys. And that's a shame. It's a shame that he is not open to that.
It really is, because you would balance the whole thing. And men are struggling. I mean, men are committing suicide at 3 to 4 times suicide rate than women. They're not getting into college. There's now more women going into college. And we talk about this a lot in the dating field. The problem women have, and I'm seeing it in dating right now. Like, I have a bunch of 50, 60-year-old women by the thousands in my dating groups. They're like, where are all the good men, Chris? And I'm like, you killed them? You killed masculinity. You had a bunch of women go in and take over psychology, and they declared that masculinity is toxic and bad. So all the men went, okay, we'll just give that up. Whatever makes women happy. And now they're all screaming for these masculine men. Where are they?
Yeah.
You killed them.
When you say you killed him, and you're not even being, that's literal. We killed him.
Yeah.
Men's life expectancy is now 5.9 years less than women's.
Wow.
It's a number that's been growing and growing and growing. And so when you get into the 50s and 60s, there are a lot fewer men than women, period. So even if everyone paired off, you'd have, if everyone who is straight paired off, you have a bunch of extra women left over. I mean, there's just more women than men over age 40. A lot of people don't know this. There's more boys than girls born. The ratio is about 105 to 100, and then boys die more than girls, all the way up to about age 40.
Almost double digits by age 40. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then at 50, we break double digits.
Yeah. So then, 50s and 60s, there's going to be more women than men just at that age group.
Yeah, and the other problem we're having in dating that hurts women is, and this affects women. Like I have women that are desperate to find a husband, and they're coming out of, and even worse, they bought emotionalism's game of just do your career first. And so I have women now that are 50, 52, and they have 6 kids or 4 kids that are all in diapers, and they've blown out of their first divorce that normally people would blow out of in their 30s, and they're looking for a man who wants to take on a family who's 50 to 60. And most men aren't interested in doing that. And so there's that dichotomy that's going on. There's the other issue in dating where we've run a bunch of polls in my dating group, and there's a bunch of polls online too. Only with hookup culture that's going on, if you're familiar with hookup culture, only about 10 to 15% of men are actively dating, because 95% of women aren't chasing men. So the only men who are really dating are men that have some money and some game, and about 5% of those is the Chad hookup culture crowd. So they're just turning and burning through about 150 partners a year. And so it leaves you with about 10% of the market that's actively dating in the polls that I've seen. And all these men are sitting on the fence. They're just like, we're done with it. We're not marrying. We don't have some don't have the money because of this economy and stuff. They don't have houses that women can move into. They don't have cars. And then the other problem women have is they make some pretty good money, and that's fine. Congratulations. But I meet them and I'm like, you turn yourself into the man you always wanted. So you make $120,000 a year, and you want a guy who, because hypergamy is a real thing. Women date up. They don't date down. They don't usually date sideways. They date up. So they want a guy who earns more than them, a guy who's more successful than them, et cetera, et cetera. For men in America, for single men, especially over 6 feet tall, if you're looking at single men who make more than $80,000 a year, that's only 3% of the population in the U.S.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow. 3% of the population in the U.S. If you go to $100,000 for a single male over 6 foot, it's less than 1% of the population.
Wow.
So I fit that market, and I don't know if you've been on TikTok lately, but the whole world of the internet of women are screaming that they want high value men, and they want millionaires, or they want guys who make 100,000 plus, 6 foot tall plus, and are well endowed. Let's just put it that way. It's we call it the third six, or they do. And they don't realize that there's only less than 1% of those men on the planet. And even then, when you tell it to them, they think they're still going to find it. You have a 1 out of 3.5 million chance of meeting me at 6'2" tall, 100,000 plus, and I'm not going to get into the third six. But that makes it even more harder to get to me. But you have a 1 out of 3.5 million chance of finding me in the U.S. Wow. Let alone me being interested in dating you. Let alone me being interested in offering you something beyond sex in a relationship or marriage. And at that point, the odds become billions, really, especially when somebody's been single as long as I have.
Yeah, and I think you're exactly right. I think it's contributing to this loneliness epidemic among young people because I think they think, dating is something you do through your phone, as opposed to just going out into the world and just naturally meeting, doing what you love, going for hikes or joining clubs, whatever. Then, I met this person in my club. Hey, do you want to hang out after club? Whatever it is. Like young people don't even think of that. And I think you mentioned this earlier. You were correct that they're worried about getting accused of something. Yeah. And so these wrongful accusations is a worry. So then they're scared to date someone in person, and then they go to these online apps, and the chances, like you said, are very low for a lot of people on these apps to find what they want. Especially and so we have this loneliness epidemic of these like younger generation. They end up not dating as much. Younger people are just not dating as much as 20, 30 years ago.
And then I mentioned the incels earlier. I was meaning to get to something about that. These young boys that are going off and shooting up schools, they're incels. So they're raised without a masculine presence in the home. I think Warren of The Boy Crisis wrote about this, that gave you the blurb for your book. They're predominantly raised in single mother homes. They're raised in emotionalism, so they're emotional boys. When you mix, men have the penchant to kill. It's in our nature. It's why we're giving up our body strength. We have a killer's sort of hindbrain mindset when it comes down to it, because it's all caveman shit and tribal shit. We haven't changed over all these years. So we have a penchant to kill when we want. Women kill with, destroying your reputation and talking about you behind your back and rumors and innuendo. Men, we kill. So when you raise a boy who can't control and regulate his emotions and emotionalism with low emotional intelligence, if you give him the right symptoms of a gun and he feels rejected by society, he doesn't manage his emotions with, stoicism or masculinity, which is a core foundation of stoicism. I mean, it's basically the owner's manual of being a man. He, if given the right circumstances with a gun, will act that out. And, a lot of men do sometimes not with a gun. They beat women in violence, rape, all those things come from single mothers' homes. The large amount of criminals we have in the criminal system come from single mother homes. Rapists come from single mother homes. Serial killers come from single mother homes. This is a big deal without men being able to assist other men in what the crisis is of what men are going through.
And I agree. And this is exactly why I think the Democratic Party, this is where they should actually take the lead in this stuff instead of sort of putting their head in the sand and pretending it's not, none of these things are gender issues. But let's take the school shooting one, because I think nothing strikes more fear into any parent's heart than their kid going to school and hearing there's a shooting at their school. That's the worst thing you can imagine. And, if we know that it's almost all men, and like you say, most young men or boys, I should use the word boys, most of them are from a home without a father. Not all, but most, like over, I think it was 95%, something like that. So it's okay. What is missing with these young boys' lives or young men's lives, that they wake up on a certain day and they think the best thing they're going to do is create this chaos. They drew a plan. It wasn't spontaneous. Like a lot of these people have plans. They've drawn it out, and it's okay. This is exactly the sort of thing the Democrats could take the lead on and say, hey, we're going to help our boys, support our boys. We're going to create national, boys commission or something, and, work to support. Our goal is to have 0 school shootings ever. And we're going to do that by supporting our boys. Great message. I think voters would like it. it would be male supportive. And it shouldn't even be a partisan thing. Why is supporting boys so that they don't get upset and go create these acts of violence? Should that be a partisan thing? Shouldn't it be everyone? Shouldn't everyone be supportive of that? And it's shocking to me how suggesting to create a national boys council or something like that, people look at you like you're some kind of weirdo or something like this. Seems like a very straightforward, common sense idea to me.
Yeah, we need to be really honest. It's not about equality. It's about men down, women up so women can rise. I've had women say that to me on the show. There's women, there's quotes of that on the show, of women I've had on the show who say the future is women. I'm like, what future then, or do men play a part in that? And again, this isn't all about men. Women, we're tied together. We're not equal. There is no equality in the universe. We are complements to each other. We're different, but we're those pieces of the puzzles that come together. And that's what we have to recognize, that, masculinity needs femininity. Femininity needs masculinity. And they're both healthy, and we both need those two to work together. One of the other things we've alluded to too is now more than ever, there are more women going to college than men. And those women are going to want to hypergamously make families someday. They've got that clock, biological clock ticking. Men don't have that.
Yeah.
And I see my young men that are in my gaming groups, they're out spending their money and having fun. They own like race cars, and they got more toys than I do. And I mean, I got investments, but I got better things to do. But I mean, if you want to buy a bunch of cars, knock yourself out. Declining assets. But they're having fun. They're buying like giant video game sets that they sit in for car racing, and they're having a good time. The only problem is these women, when they graduate college and they get to 30s to want to have kids, the percentage of men that are going to be available to them are going to be much far fewer. And if right now, from the numbers I see, only about 12 to 15% of men can actively date or are interested in actively dating, and we're talking about long-term dating. So it's where I take a woman out on a date, we go out on another date, I take her to dinner, I pay for dinner, I do all those things that signal to her that I'm a provider and a protector and a potential husband or long-term mate. The rest of the market is either just sitting around doing hookup culture, they're not interested in long-term relationships, they're not interested in marriage, or they just can't afford to date. And a lot of them don't care. And a lot of the women that are in my 50s groups, they don't realize that they've monkey branched too far, because most of the men in their 50s too, not only are they gone, but most of them have been through 1 to 2 divorces. So they're cleaned out. They're kind of done marrying. I've had women in my group come up to me and go, Chris, I don't know why men won't date me anymore. Tell me about what's going on with you. I've been divorced 4 times, or I've been divorced 3 times. I'm like, honey, you're a wonderful person, but men aren't doing suicide missions, man. No one wants to be the 5th divorcee. Come on, man. Seriously, how did you get to 50 and every decade you've pulled off a divorce? I mean, you should get an award, but I'm not sure that's the kind of award you want. But and a lot of these guys are on the fence. They're just burnt. They're tired of being game for money. There's so many scammers out there. I don't know if you follow TikTok, but at one time there was one of the trillions of views things were how to scam men, how to rip off men. There was one point, kill all men, that was trending as a hashtag. And if you tried doing anything, kill all women, that was banned. And there was a lot of those anti-equality hashtags, scam all men, manipulate all men suck, all these hashtags that, you go on. And the biggest problem that, I don't know, you should talk about if you haven't, or maybe write in your second book, the biggest problem that I have is when I go on social media, I'm attacked as a man. And I can't go on TikTok without seeing something about how bad men are, how awful we are, how worthless we are, what pieces of crap we are, how we're scammers in dating, which, 90% of educated women, 90% of divorces that are filed by educated people are educated women. And it's 80 or 70% of women are filing divorces. They're the ones leaving.
Yeah.
And it's usually because a man financially stumbles. And so I go on there and I get attacked. And then I get the 3 6s thing, and I deserve a man who has 3 6s. I deserve a high value man. I get that constantly. It's in my DMs. I get people coming up to my events telling me that they deserve me. And I'm just like, It's the most assaulting thing ever. But someone made something interesting. I'm 56, so I can kind of roll with it. I'm used to getting trolled by the internet after all these years on YouTube. But someone made an interesting comment to me the other day. Young boys are growing up without that sort of bias that callous that I have. Young boys are growing up, and they're seeing this thing firsthand, and it's going to shape them. And it's not going to be healthy. Like, I can sit back and go, okay, I'm masculine, I'm stoic, okay, yeah, it's cute what you got going on there. But these young boys, they're going to be fucked for life, to put it mildly.
That is one of the challenges. You're exactly right. When we have, a whole generation of boys being told, the future is female and girls are cool and boys cool or whatever.
Is toxic.
Yeah, boys are stupid, throw rocks at them. That was a T-shirt that was going around for a while.
Serious? Wow.
And you couldn't change the genders on that and it'd be acceptable. Now, sticks and stones will break my bones. Okay, but when you're a young kid and you see messages like that, I think those stick.
Yeah,
I think those get into you, and more than people realize. And it's okay to trash one gender, but if you do the other one, it's bad. I've had people tell me that, they like my post. I'm like, oh, why aren't you liking my post or commenting on them more? It's a little too controversial. I mean, my posts are very straightforward. I'm talking about healthcare policy, and I'm doing word searches of the Democratic Party platform where they don't, talk enough about men and boys. They talk a ton about women and girls. And I've had a couple of people say, it's just, I don't want to be too controversial. They're scared to even post that supports men in the most, I would say, the most benign way I could possibly write it, and people are still nervous.
I get assaulted daily for talking about what my value is. So in 2020, I saw all these women are running around, know my value. I know my value. And I was like, what is that about? And I guess it was coming from Kevin Samuels' videos that he was doing, if you're familiar with Kevin Samuels.
Yep.
And Kevin Samuels was trying to have an interesting conversation, especially with the black community that he was part of, as to how, we can get more fathers for black children. But he was talking to, I think, a lot of what everyone was concerned about, because, things kind of came to a stop there in 2020. In fact, dating did. And so I saw these women running around. I know my value. And so it started a conversation in my head, and there was a lot going on in Clubhouse about this conversation of knowing your value and dating. And I remember going to Clubhouse and seeing just women yelling at men in Clubhouse rooms. There were these big audio rooms, and they had what were called stages. So you would go up on this, you would be the leader who could talk to everybody, and people go up and voice their opinions and bark at people, and it was good for talking about healthy issues. But I would go into these dating rooms, and there would be women up barking at men going, we don't do coffee dates, and if you don't send us money to pay for the babysitter, and we need $1,000 cash out to us before we even go out to you.
What?
And I was just
$1,000 just to go on a date, and you have to send them the money?
Yeah, you got to send them the money. You got to cash app her for her hair, her nails. You need to go on TikTok more.
Oh, wow. Yeah, this is beyond my scope.
Oh, dude. And it's really hard to deal with as a man, because you're like, God, I like women. I thought they were all soft and puppy dog tails and daisies and stuff. So I sat down and I said, what's my value as a man? What do I bring to the table? Do I have value as a man? And anytime I discuss value as a man, my value, my personal value, because I've done my own Ben Franklin, just like women have done. What do I bring to the table? So I know what I bring to the table. But anytime you talk about men having an option of choice, men knowing their value, that men have the ability to pick the women that they want based upon some sort of standards, you get the hell attacked out of you. I mean, it basically, there is a narrative in the world that men don't have a choice, that men need to shut up, sit down, and just, the future is women, and men need to just go be dumb mules. And that's really the message that comes across. In fact, it's been said to me, there are some deep issues, and I agree with you. Democrats need to embrace this. I mean, we used to be called the Big Tent. Remember, we used to be called the Big Tent.
I say that exactly. I say the exact same thing in my book. You're right on the money. Oh, where are men allowed in this big tent? If you look at the 2020 Democratic Party platform, I did a word search on it. The words women and girls show up 73 times. the world's men and boys only show up a total of 10 times. And every single one of those 10 is just a men and women statement, like Native American men and women is one of them. Like they're just, so there's no issues, zero, that are focused specifically on men and boys in the 2020, and basically the exact same thing in the 2016 Democratic Party platform. So they're saying, we don't care about men and boys, but we want your vote. They ask me for money, I don't know, 10 times a day in various emails on the various Democratic lists I'm on. So you just say, give me money, give me money, give me money. Okay, at least tell me one thing specifically, like of all the issues that men have, we die earlier, we commit suicide, opioid overdose, all these things happening to men. Can you help us on one specifically focused on men? And the answer is no, they can't do that.
And we could probably do an even longer list when it comes to divorce courts.
Yeah.
I know so many men that there's men in my group. We just had a big singles event on Father's Day, and we were going to cancel it because it was Father's Day, but we decided to have it because there's so many fathers that are alienated from their kids.
That's so sad.
We just said, come out and we don't want people committing suicide at home today. Come out and we'll celebrate Father's Day with you. And as we know, Father's Day, and I think, didn't we recently do Men's Month or something, or Father's Month or something?
I think June was Men's Mental Health Month. Yeah.
No one cared. No one posted
I know
shit.
I live in San Francisco, so it's Pride Month here, period. Like, it's hard to do something. I did, however, 4 years ago, create a day with one of the organizations I work with. We created International Sperm Count Decline Awareness Day, which is June 30th every year. This is the fourth year this year, because this is an environmental issue, which, again, Democrats should care about the environment, right? It's all these plastics and toxins in our environment. Men's sperm count have declined by 50% or more. There's a recent study now that says 63%. And this is all over the world.
Yeah,
this is not just, the estrogenic chemicals. And it's not just the United States. It's all over the world. That should be sending alarm bells. And I feel this issue is not even brought up. So we created it. June 30th every year. Have a party.
There you go. I'll celebrate my vasectomy. Every now and then I get my vasectomy check when I go into a relationship. And they always call me from the fertility clinic. And they're like, we have some bad news, Mr. Voss. And I'm like, what is it? And they go, you don't have any sperm. And I'm like, yay! And they're like, wait, this is not the usual answer we get. But no, male divorce court is supposed to be equal, technically, according to the tort laws, but it's not. It's highly biased. You look at the numbers between kids that are raised in a single mother home versus male are demonstrably different. I understand why males have to go out and work and make more money, but that may shift in the future with women, making more money going into college, but then they don't date down, so they're just going to have problems with families. I mean, I've seen women in the dating market on Tinder literally advertising in their late 40s that they bought the feminism line, go work for the man before you go live with the man. And they're sitting there going, literally pleading, going, hey, I have frozen eggs and I'm late 40s and I need to find a man and a family now. I'm like burning time. And you're just like, honey, the men who are older than you that date down, that are your dating class, they're done. They've already done one or two families. I don't know someone lied to you. Like, really badly.
I have empathy for a lot of people in that situation, because, like you say, gender roles have just changed tremendously since World War II. I mean, never have in the history of the world, I don't think, have we seen such a rapid change of gender roles. And so women are thinking, I'm told I'm supposed to work. I'm told I'm supposed to do this. All of a sudden, wait a sec, now my biological clock, the alarm bell's going off. And then they feel like, hey, they think I did what I thought I was supposed to do. This is what everybody told me. And if people who send a message other than that, sometimes their voices get drowned out. But, I do feel some empathy for women where all, gender roles have changed. Like you say, women often still are looking for somebody who is a certain, income category or whatever. But if they're making more money, do they have to reprogram their brain to be okay with dating somebody else? Or how does that work?
Hypergamy is a hindbrain thing. Women can't.
So it's a challenge as society changes, and I think a lot of these changes have been good. I think it's great that everyone can go pursue their passion. If your passion is becoming a lawyer, anyone can do it. That's great. I mean, all these kind of things. We should have a world where people can pursue the life they want to live, and let's let everyone come out. I don't like it when, as you alluded to before, we have to pigeonhole a certain number of people into this particular job to meet a number. I think and it's a delicate balance of making sure everything is open to everyone and not forcing people where they really, it wasn't really the right fit.
Yeah. I mean, I see women suffering right now in 50s and 60s. They're having to date down, or they're trying to date down. If you study the numbers on women who date down, it never works out well for them. They're more stressed in relationships if they get into marriages because they have to be the male. They can't be feminine. They've got to usually be the breadwinner, in these sort of relationships. The men always leave them for younger women. It just never works out long term. It's a zero sum end game. There might be I don't know, who's that guy who runs France? He's got that older wife. It works in some very
in certain cases.
Yeah, there's outliers, but I see women suffering. I mean, women are asking me all the time, where are all the good men? Where are all the masculine men? Where is everybody, Chris? And even the numbers, like in my groups, I mean, we have almost 20,000 people in all my groups and stuff on Facebook and the meetup.coms that we do. And you can see the numbers of the groups of people who are alive and active in the groups. And then I parse that with our state local numbers of men. And yeah, men are just not there. I mean, I think we figured out that only 7% of men are available for dating and being alive and not in relationships in the state of Utah.
That age, yeah.
Yeah, and yet we have 50% women that are single looking for men. So 50% of women are chasing 7% of men, basically.
Wow.
That's horrible odds for women. So I feel for women. It's not it's not that we're like, oh, hey, women down so men can rise. Yeah. No, we rise or sink together as male and female.
Exactly. I'm so glad you said that. It's exactly how we're all interconnected. When we all do, again, politics is not a zero-sum game, or the gender issues are not a zero-sum game. It's not, the men's team and the women's team, and you're fighting, and who's right and who's wrong. It's like, no, how can we lift everyone up? I think that's what we need to be thinking about.
You have to be in a you can't be in a scarcity mindset. You have to be in an abundance mindset. A rising tide lifts all boats. And it's just really important. And women, they have trouble now. They're like, Chris, I make $100,000 a year. I need to find a man who makes $120,000 a year. Good luck. There's only 1% of those men, and they date down. They date down quite far because they can, and usually they're looking for feminine women. They've earned their peace in their life. So, what do you see? Do you see any dangers on the horizon with this current election coming up? And we just, like I mentioned earlier, we just came out of this issue with Biden really doing poorly in a debate and having a bad debate night.
Yeah, so looking at this upcoming election, so first of all, even before the debate last fall, again, I really look at these voting by gender numbers. That minus 8% is where you want to see the Democrats at with men. So that means when you poll the men, you want to see minus 8 or above. They've been at minus 16, 17, 18 consistently since last fall. There was a New York Times Siena poll that came out in the fall. Going all the way up till now, it's about the same. Last week, it was minus 18. So just looking at that number, that would mean that among women, to balance that out, the Democrats would have to do better by far than they ever have with women. The best Democrats have ever done with women is plus 16. They're not going to win. But basically, I've been looking at the numbers all year from that perspective and think the Democrats are behind it, and they haven't really made up much ground. They made up a little ground in the spring, and then boom, they just lost it with the debate. I don't know if Biden is going to stay in or not. This obviously is the number one story in the country right now, if he's going to stay in or not. He's vowing to stay in. I think it's likely he will, because nobody can kick him out at this point, I don't think. Sure. And, again, he has paid almost no attention to men and boys issues. I've been following this whole election just to see the messaging and see what they do. There's been one very brief commercial. It was focused at Latino men, and it's saying, Trump is bad for your girlfriend or mother or wife, like the women in your life, so vote for Biden. So that was, and it was probably a very small scale Spanish language Latino commercial. That's it. Yeah. But in terms of the rest of the male demographic, they're not approaching us. They're not messaging to us. They're not talking to us. And even though some of the policies they do are beneficial for men, Biden has pardoned a lot of marijuana offenders who are in jail for small level marijuana use. That's a male issue, in my opinion, because most of the people in jail for that are men.
Yeah.
And so when he pardons them, that's a good thing for men, but they won't sort of claim it as something that is helping men. They'll only, they only bring up other parts of it. So right now, just looking at the numbers, they've been behind for the last 9 months, and I haven't seen any major changes to them doing better. And even if Biden drops out and it's somebody else, that new person better really look at the male 48% of the voting population. The one pundit who's sort of been talking about this is James Carville. He's the one person who has been sort of on point on this for the Democrats, although he's not working for the Democrats anymore. He's just, as far as I know, I think he's more of a commentator. I'm sure he gives people advice. But anyway, so I am very concerned for the Democrats in this election. Also, you look at the swing states, not surprisingly, the Democrats lost among men in all 7 of the swing states. Those are the most important states. So you look at the numbers in those states too.
Yeah. I believe, the rumors have been, or at least there's been some surveys that black people have moved away from Biden. I believe the Cubans did in Florida, and I believe Mexican people have done as well. And I think that's in large part because of the men in those communities, I think.
That's exactly right. And so there's been a small push, like I say, like that the one Latino ad I saw. There's been a little bit of a push in this way. I saw Kamala Harris she did a meeting with young black male business owners. Like there's been a little bit of outreach, I think, to minority men, but they need to take a step back and understand it's the same pattern with every single race, that there are more women voting Democrat and more men, voting Republican. There's a gap, I should say, with each race, that there's more women voting Democrat than men are voting Democrat within the same race. So there's obviously a gender component to the whole thing. And for some reason, the Democrats just can't put that together and just acknowledge it. I don't understand why. I got to tell you, it just kind of baffles me.
Let me ask you this. I mean, Roe versus Wade was overturned under Biden. Not that it's his fault. I'm not blaming him. I'm just giving a time period, people. But are they betting, or are they betting too much that that's going to get out the vote? I mean, anybody who knows what's going on, Trump's, been very open about stopping abortion, Project 2025. Obviously, he's probably going to get 1 to 2 or 3 more SCOTUS appointments in the next term. If Trump wins, abortion is gone. And I mean, the joke about, I don't know, what's that TV show where the women's wear their red capes and stuff they're always going on about?
I'm not sure.
It's the Housemaid's Tales, the Handmaid's Tales, the
Handmaid's Tales.
The Handmaid's Tales, yeah.
Yes, okay, I do know that. Yeah.
There's always kind of this meme going around that's what will happen under, these Christian administrations. And women, I've read a lot of books on fascism. This is the pattern that always happens with fascism and the rise of right-wing nationalism. If you really understand it, Beth, I forget her name, she wrote a book called Strongman, and a lot of it has to do with the rise of women and LGBT rights, and it gets really high and men lose enough rights that men just seize power back, and that comes from the right-wing Christian thing, and they seize power at the most optimum time. And if you understand what's going on, if you read about Project 2025, if you understand the powers that be in white nationalism and how much they're rising and supporting Trump, we're in a time where this is a Nazi, Mussolini, you pick your fascism takeover, and it will be a masculine takeover, and women will lose rights. And so what do you think the Democrats are just betting that they're going to get out the vote over abortion? Or
I think that's a big part of it, and it does make sense. If you're a campaign strategist, you want to always motivate your base, right?
Yeah.
And you're exactly right that the abortion issue is one of the biggest elections that the Democrats are running on this year. There's no question about that. But you also have to say, why would men vote for abortion? Like, what's in it for them? And think of the male perspective. I talked to somebody who runs the DNC in North Carolina, which is one of the 7 swing states. I said, you lost North Carolina among men by 9% last time. What's your strategy to do better with men this time? And she said, no, we're focused on women. And I just thought, this is exactly focus on everyone's. In my book, I called the all demographic strategy. Remember Howard Dean had the 50-state strategy, and they did really well. Obama won twice. They won the Congress in 2006. They said, you know what, we're going to go everywhere. We're going to go to Alabama, Mississippi, Alaska. We're going to go everywhere, and that's going to just raise the party up, and that will do better. We're not going to forget people because they're in a district that we don't think we're going to win. And I think they're making the exact same mistake today, but they're doing it with demographics instead of geography. So what they're doing is let's focus on the people we think will vote for us. We'll focus on this group and this group and this group. And if we get enough of these people in enough of these states, we'll win. I think that appears to, I don't have the inside information. I'm not at their meetings, but just based on all the messaging that I'm seeing and all my analysis of the data and of the party platforms and like that, they say we're going to try to go for these types of people. And if we get enough of these types of people, we'll win. And I think the answer should go for everyone.
Yeah.
And ask especially men when they're 48.7% of the voters. Why not? What you got to lose?
I mean, it sounds like the same mistake Hillary Clinton did when all she had to do was go to fucking Michigan or Wisconsin at least once.
Exactly. I'm really afraid that the Democrats are doing exactly what they did in 2016.
Yeah, yep. And then we have the ordained thing. I mean, that was the other problem with Hillary was we ordained her. Biden wanted to run. A few other people wanted to run, and the Democratic Party says, no, we're going to force a woman into the vote, and we can guarantee that she'll win. And,
but wasn't it?
How that turned out?
Yeah, wasn't it the issue that Bo passed away as well?
I think so. Yeah, but I think also there was a ordainment thing. The other thing is my understanding, and I believe this comes from a well-researched book. The Democratic Party was broke. Like Obama just left it fucking broke, and so Hillary was the one who had the money to inject to get the Democratic Party going again and processing for an election. And so she just took it over and owned it. It's kind of like what Trump has done to the party of Republicans.
Yeah, I know a lot of Bernie Sanders supporters weren't happy with her at that time.
Well, they were screwing and sabotaging the Bernie thing. If you remember, they weren't giving data. They were slow walking stuff. They were just mucking about to sabotage his thing. And I was never a Bernie supporter, but it was really obvious what was going on at the time because Bernie was complaining about it too outright.
Oh yeah, remember when he sat at the at the inauguration of Biden with the big mittens on, and he's a little upset. Yeah. That
was a great meme. But yeah, I mean, we all need to work together. I mean, equality is true equality across the board. It's either equality or it's not equality, and that's really what it comes down to. I'm fully supportive of women and their women efforts, but it can't be a zero-sum game. It can't be men down, women up. And that's what it has been for the last 30 years. If you study what's gone on in schools, what's gone on in men, I see these young men all over my gaming community. They have no interest in marriage. They have no interest in women. They have no interest in relationships. They've got some pretty good money. They're not going out and getting high-paying jobs or college degrees, but, they're enjoying their life. And men are designed that way. We're designed to roam. We're not designed actually to be in marriages and all these silly things that have come back. If you look at the marriage experiment in human history, it's like a teeny ass sliver of the eons of time we've been around, and that's why divorce rates are so high. It's just not working anymore, especially when women have an extreme amount of hypergamy. Social media can make it so that people can easily jump from relationship to relationship, but I'm seeing that it's hurting women. And like I said, I have all these women that are 50 and 60s. I have women that are younger. I mean, when I'm talking to women that are in the 30s, 40s, they're like, where are all the masculine men, Chris? We'd like to start a family. I'm like, they're gone. You killed them. The psychologists got taken over by women. They said male toxicity is bad, so all the men turn into simps. We need men. I'm like, they don't make those anymore. Have fun. So there you go. Yeah. All right, man. Give us the final thoughts as we go out. Tell people where they can order the book.
All right. So the book is available. It's called How Democrats Can Win Back Men. Again, my name is Mark W. Sutton. It's on Amazon. And you can also get the link to the Amazon listing on my website, which is mark-sutton.com. It's mark-sutton, SUTTON.com. You click there, and you can also get to my Substack blog, Men in the 2024 Election, where I'm following these events in real time as they happen.
There you go. And I just would like to keep democracy around for a while.
Yeah.
4 more years, maybe. This isn't too much to ask. So yeah, as a moderate Democrat, I'm hoping we win. I think you raised some good things. I think, we I don't know, we just need stronger lobbyists. This is the problem with men. We're so busy, saving the world and doing all the stuff we do and raising families and being the dominant income earners in probably 99% of families out there. I don't know what it is, 95. we're so busy doing that, we don't have time to sit around and hire lobbyists and do things. There needs to be more men committees. I know there's a lot of things for men and divorces, but both men, I think men realize that we need women, but we need more women who are like, we need men. And
there are plenty out there, too. It's good to point that out. There are a lot of supportive women that I work with these nonprofits that I've worked with or in other advocacy work. And you're exactly right. Somebody described it this way. It's almost like women and girls have a labor union that's advocating for them at every turn at the national, state, and local level at all these councils. The state of California has 25 commissions on the status of women and girls from the state down to the local level. San Francisco, where I live, has a department on the status of women and girls. No department, of course, on the status of men and boys, despite those poor social outcomes that we talked about earlier. So I 100% agree with you. I'm trying to do it, man. Chris, that's what I'm working on. I'm trying to create these commissions and do that. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, it's going to be, I think a lot of women on the Republican side understand family and they understand the importance of men, and there's kind of a value there. I understand why they don't like abortion. As a moderate, I can kind of start seeing both sides, and I've been able to look at both sides and go, how do we bridge the gap between these two? Okay, somebody's got to give a little, somebody's on our side's going to give a little. We got to somewhere figure out how to meet in the middle. But if Trump wins, it's not going to be good for women. It's not. It's going to be very ugly. I mean, go read Project 2025. Go understand Christian nationalism. Yeah. Christian nationalism is about a very ugly thing. And it's not men that are mostly, there's probably men mostly behind it, but there's a lot of women too. Like anytime I get this bashing, men are the ones who support, are against abortion. No, those guys have wives and they're jumping and doing what their wives tell them. So it's the Christian women that don't like it either. This is like 30% of this country, 33% of the women in this country don't support abortion. Take it up with your sisters.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah. And believe me, those husbands are doing whatever the wife's telling them. So if you think it's men behind it, talk to the sisterhood. So there you go. Anyway, guys, thank you for coming to the show. Mark, great discussion on this, and we'll see how this turns out in January.
All right. Yeah. We'll see you on the other side. Chris, thanks so much for having me on.
Or I'll see you in the camps. I'll see you in the Democrat camps. We'll share a bunk. There you go. All right. So thank you very much for coming to the show. Give us your .com one last time if you didn't get that.
Sure. It's mark-sutton.com, and you can get there to click on the book to buy it on Amazon.
There you go. You look like me a good bunk bed, mate.
Right.
How Democrats can win back men. My understanding male voters and their issues is vital for Democratic victory out June 26, 2024. And thanks so much for tuning in. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, all the crazy place on the net. Be good to each other. Stay safe. We'll see you next time.